Greetings, it's Artie from Artifact Electronics. A few episodes back we had a bunch of fun with my $5 component tester, which turned out to be a very useful bench instrument. It identifies components and tests them, and I mostly used it to test capacitors with it, but also to identify other things, and it served me well. And then one day it stopped serving me completely. So I thought, yeah, let's have a look. Can't be that bad, right? So I plugged a battery, a 9-volt, into it, and nothing happened when I hit the switch. It basically runs on standby current normally, and then has a semiconductor controlled switch that gives it full power when you press the switch. And powers up the processor. Well, nothing happened, and played with it for a while, and this battery is brand new. I measured it. It was outputting like 9.4 volts or something, and after a while I measured it, and it was only showing 7.8 volts. So something was sucking this thing dry. Well, something. This guy was. And I said, I'll show you, and I hooked it up to the bench supply. So let's see with the bench supply. Can you see those numbers? Yeah, you can. So we'll give it some power. It's sitting in standby right now. I mean, assuming it's running off a 9-volt battery. I gave it 9 volts, and it's basically consuming nothing right now because there's just a bunch of transistors that get latched on when you press the button, and after a while the processor unlatches those transistors and turns the power off again. So now look what happens when I hit power. And it goes off again. Now, if you watched, it's kind of consuming 250 milliamps. That's pretty much enough to bring any kind of battery to its knees in a very short amount of time. So, looks like we have something seriously wrong going on this guy. And let's see if we can find what it is. So there's not a lot in this guy. This is where power comes in, the 9 volts. I think these are the transistor array that latches on and off, latches on when you press the front button, and latches off after a while when the processor determines that it's time to save the battery. Of course, here's the processor, which is a what is it? It's an Arduino, basically, an Arduino processor. And of course I don't remember the number on it, so let me see if I can read that. It's an Atmel. Well, that's hard to read. A 328. So here's our processor. It actually runs off an external crystal, probably for accuracy of measurements. Then there is some, I think this is the input conditioning circuitry here, because compared to the other components, these diodes look rather beefy. And that's about it. So as I was incessantly pushing the power button to see what was going on here, I noticed that this part warmed up quite a lot. This is where all the current was going to. This is a surface mount 7805 that just takes the input 9 volts and creates 5 volts out of that to drive the processor, as well as this is the LCD backlight connector here, and you notice that the LCD didn't even come on. So I poked around a little bit, and an interesting thing I found is So let's put the meter into resistance mode and actually show it on the screen. But if I measure just the regulator itself, well, I can get ground, tap ground off of here, which is where the wire comes in. So the input of the regulator to ground shows about 13.25 k ohms, and that's normal. I've measured a few other 7805s, and they range from about 10k to 13k input to ground resistance. And then I measured the output to ground, and I got not making a good connection, but essentially what you can see in there is I'm getting 5 ohms. That is way too low. Now, of course, you may say, oh, okay, you got a bad regulator in there. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. Since the output seems shorted or near shorted, it can be the regulator itself, but it can also be something that is driving. The processor, the backlight, I mean the LCD itself, of course, input conditioning circuitry, all sorts of stuff. I remember I paid $5 for this thing, shipped, and it was shipped from the US, so I had it in like 3 or 4 days. Thought it was a really good deal. Well, I thought it was a really good deal till it died, of course, but I thought, let's give it a chance and see. I mean, did the regulator just fail? I promise I didn't do anything nasty with this. I discharged every single capacitor I measured with it. I was really careful with it, but it died anyway. So what I think I'm going to do is pull the regulator off, and then basically have a look and see what happens to the output to ground resistance. This is obviously the 5-volt rail over here. If that resistance goes high, then most likely we found the culprit. If it does stay around, what was it, 4 or 5 ohms, then most likely either the processor or the display have shorted for some reason or other, and most likely I will not attempt to repair this. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's warm up the iron and take that part off. So I removed the regulator. I was going to use a heat gun to do this quickly, but then I realized I would probably depopulate this entire area of the board using a heat gun. So braid and a soldering iron it was. So now let's see what the resistance is between ground, which is kind of like the tab is of course ground, and the output of the regulator over here. So we'll put Mr. Meter in the picture, set to resistance, and measure between the ground and the output. Boo, loser. We still got like 5 ohms there, which means something that's spanning the 5-volt rail, which could be one of many things, as I mentioned: processor, display, bypass caps, polyrazzmatazz, whatever. Something shorted in here. So at this point, I officially throw in the towel on this board, and it goes into my parts bin. But wait, that's not all. I'm not going to let you go with a failed repair like this, am I? Well, I only paid $5 for the last one, including shipping. So I went in search of finding another one, and this This time I was going to buy 2 or 3 of them, but no. $5 ones were all gone. Whether you got them from China or from the US or from wherever. So I got this. Came in this quaint box. Cost like $22. Didn't have free shipping, but eBay started charging sales tax. So, you know, it became a different purchase than just the $5 one. But, you know, it's worth it just for the box. So let's see. I got an invoice and a nice note. Now, last time when I got this, you know, viewers were telling me, don't be an idiot, man, you need to calibrate that thing. And see, the last one came in a plain envelope with no instructions. This one actually has instructions in it, and let's see, oh yes, it's an Atmega 328, and there's a calibration method in here, which we can use. And here's the unit, which looks pretty much the same as the other one. Let's see, it's got a piece of tape to secure the display. But looks pretty identical to the other one, at least with the layout and the vias and everything. Doesn't have the marking that the original one has on top, but it's the same board, so that's good. And the reason why I paid so much more money for it is this one came with a Plexi case, which of course I'll have to assemble myself, but it's probably more expensive to make these Plexi pieces than to make this guy himself. But okay, let us see if he turns on. So I had a bad moment there because I took this tape off that was securing the display, and the tape was so sticky that it actually lifted the display out of its plastic frame. So I said, oh crap, this probably has a zebra connector down here. So by lifting out the display here, I'll never get it back to work properly. But then I opened my eyes and I saw that no, it has an honest-to-goodness connector here that is actually soldered to the board. So all I had to do was press the display back so the tabs would hold it in the plastic frame. And I guess I haven't destroyed anything yet. So let's see. Let's give it a battery. Actually, you know, I'm going to hook it up to the bench supply because I'm kind of curious to see, okay, which one's plus and which one's minus. Oh, so the big connector is plus and the little connector is minus. So it wants 9 volts. And we'll give it, oh, all right, let me set up the power supply. I had it set up right, but I didn't save the setup when I did the test on the old one, and it lost all the settings. Okay, I set it up for 9 volts and limited the current to 200 mils. So in standby, same thing, 0.0008 amps. So that's 800 microamps or 0.8 milliamps. And, drum roll, hooray! Well, it comes up. So now what we need to do is put together the Plexi case for it, and I'm also going to take the test clips that I soldered to the underneath of this board and move them more over to this one. Ha! Even turns off in time. And then once we put it all together, we'll use the manual to calibrate it. And of course I forgot to read off the current consumption for it. So let's do this again. And it is now consuming almost 12 milliamps, which is a far cry from the 250 milliamps the dead one with the short was consuming. Yeah, okay, it took me a while to put this together. I was too proud to look at the pictures on the internet. But, hey, it all fit. And you can press the button. It even has little cutouts for the lever on the ZIF socket. Oh crap, now I gotta take it apart again to put the battery in. Also, you can't see the display. Okay, there's some extra holes here. Maybe you can like run the battery wires out of here, or it's also not sitting very level because some of these screws are a little bit longer than the others, so it seesaws. So it'll need some rubber feet over here, no problem. But not seeing the display is a bit of a problem, so crap. I guess I got to take it all apart again and remove this protective thingamajig stuff. Yeah, I was afraid of that. Alright, I'll do it off camera. Actually, I think I'm going to go get drunk tonight and maybe do that tomorrow. Let's see what happens. Well, it is now tomorrow. I got up this morning and spent an inordinate amount of time trying to get the protective paper off of this thing. But everything came off. I put it back together. It still turns on. Not much to show you. Put a battery in. Put a piece of weather stripping here so it doesn't flop around too much. Put some rubber feet on it so my genuine mahogany workbench top doesn't get damaged. And of course I put the test clips in just like on the last one, and I had a convenient hole that I could thread them through. So we're ready to go. See, I also enlarged the on-off button. You don't even have to hit the button now. You can just hit the side of the case and it works. Tolerances are a bit tight on this, but it works okay. So let's have a look at the calibration method, which I neglected to do last time. And with the Plexi box in, it is totally reflective. I mean, you can barely see what it says on the screen. Actually, it looks real good in real life, but that doesn't help you any. But let's see. Okay, timed out. Saving that battery, because one thing Battery life has become real important. There's no easy way to replace the battery. You have to take the case apart to put in a new battery. Little something they overlooked in the design, but on my old one the battery actually lasted really long, so shouldn't be a problem. So let's see the calibration method. Turn off meter, use 2 wires to shortcut the little metal sheet marked with 1, 2, and 3. Don't release the short circuit wires until step 3. Unfortunately, the little metal sheet marked 1, 2, 3 is underneath the Plexi. They didn't cut a hole into this, so we can't do that. But because I do have the convenient test clips, we just hook all of these together, and that effectively shorts all of the inputs. Stay. All right, so push the start button to turn on meter. Prepare a capacitor greater than 100 nanofarads. That's 0.1 microfarads. And what I found is a 3.3 microfarad non-polarized cap here. Please isolate probe. And I think what they mean by that, when it says isolate probe, remove the short circuit wires. Okay? Short circuit wires removed. When screen shows something, connect a non-polar capacitor greater than 100 nanofarads to the meter. Insert the capacitor. Okay, so I'm going to connect that to pin red and green, which is pin 1 and 2 respectively. And nothing happens. Oh, there you go. It reads it as 3,516 nanofarads, which is 3.5 microfarads. It's marked as 3.3 microfarads, so I guess all is well. So let's run some of the tests. This actually shows us. So it has some test examples here with pictures that show you what the screen is supposed to look like, and then it tells you what to expect. So number one says it shows that no device is connected on test terminals or an unknown part. It may also be that the device was damaged. All right. So let's see if the display we get. Well, this display actually looks like the picture in here, but let's turn it on. And okay, test passed. Second test. Test the triac. Shows that the device under test is a triac. Okay, let's find the triac. What we have here is a BTA12, which is a 12 amp 600 volt triac. So let's insert that. And test it. And it thinks it's an NPN transistor. That's not good. Let's try it the other way around. Oh, let's try it one more time this way. Same thing. And then we turn it around. And we try it again. Oh, and this time it thinks it's a PNP. So you can't test the triac. Doesn't surprise me because the old one couldn't do it either. So if I'm doing something wrong, please make sure to comment. Test the diode. Okay, let's get a diode. Any diode. And see what that says. And we'll go from 2 to 1. There you go. Cathode on 1, anode on 2. Good. We should probably run it from 3 to 2 to make sure that all of the test leads work. So now it should show a diode from 2 to 3. So that works. Very good. Next, test the capacitor. We've already done that, but let's do it again. But let's use a smaller value this time. Let's use the aforementioned 0.1 microfarads. And see what it thinks this is. Well, it sees it as a 0.098. That's more than good enough. Test a resistor. Okay. So, what is this? Yellow, orange. It's like what, 43K? I don't know. Let's see what it thinks it is. Oh, and I'm going to run it from lead 1 to lead 3. Let's see if it's smart enough to realize that. $42.43, and well, there you go. The resistor is red. For grins, let's take a smaller value. I have, that one's no good. I have a power resistor that's supposed to be 4 ohms. And that one takes a really long time. 4.12 ohms from 1 to 2. Very nice. Next we get to the Mosfet test. And for that, this is really useful. You can test MOSFETs with just a meter, but you have to be careful that the gate isn't turned on, because if the gate is turned on a MOSFET, it will give you false readings, and that gate stays on for a really long time. So with this tester, it makes sure that the gate is turned off before testing it, obviously, so you should be getting accurate readings out of this one. So let's put in, and I have a handful of these. I mean, these came out of a lamp driver board I fixed for a pinball machine, and at the time I was having a hard time testing them out of circuit with a meter. I was getting varied values, so I just replaced all of them in the board, and the board started to work. So At least one of these has to be bad. Maybe all of them, but let's see what the meter tells us. Identifies it as an NE Mosfet, shows a pretty picture, and basically is telling us that that MOSFET's good. So let's take that one out and put another one in. And this one says, oh, this one says that it's a resistor array with two separate resistors and a common input. That should be really useful. I mean, I can't think of using this for anything just now, but one day this will be very useful. To have a 36 ohm and a 5.14 ohm resistor in the same package. So, this guy's bad, and we put good on top and bad on the bottom. And so, see the other two. So this is the same manufacturer as this, and this is the same as this. So I bet you. Let's see, what is this one? This is a BUZ10L. I mean, these are equivalents for IRL 530s. But I heard this ugly rumor that the BUZ10Ls all go bad on that lamp driver board. So my guess is that this one will show up as bad. And it does. We have another beautiful resistor collection here. And that pretty much makes sense because a bad MOSFET will completely confuse anything around you, including the circuitry that's supposed to run. So that one's bad. And then using the same logic I used before, this one could be good. This is the twin brother of the first one we tested. And woohoo, it's good. Just for this thing being able to test MOSFETs, it's worth it. But it's also pretty damn good at testing capacitors. So I'm not too upset about it not being able to test a triac. But testing wouldn't be complete, testing of this device, if we didn't test the transistor first. So I put a 2N3904 NPN small signal, one of the most commonly used transistors. So can it identify that? Yep, it got it. And that's nice. But can it also identify bad transistor? I have a drawer where I keep bad components in, or components I think are bad, for times like this. And I have a good example. Here's a brand new looking 2N3055 power transistor. It hasn't even been soldered in. I don't think this was ever soldered into a board, at least the leads weren't cut. But it was sitting in the bad parts drawer. So let's see what the tester thinks this one has to say. Yeah, I heard you. I'm not going to forget to take out 3904. So, and there you go. Tells us we have another resistor array. And this fine looking example of a transistor, I guess, was dead out of the box. So another lesson to be learned. Just cause the bag that these come in have the name of a famous electronic supplier on them doesn't mean anything. Test your components before putting them into the circuit, and here is the perfect device to use for that. And here finally we have a 0.047 microfarad high voltage cap, and as you can see, read it perfectly. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you real soon. And oh yes, if you enjoy this kind of stuff and you're new to the channel, then you can find over 100 action-packed more videos. And the easiest way to get them is to go below your screen to the left, click on the Artifact Electronics text, and then click on the Videos tab, and voila, you will have a list of many enjoyable videos for you to watch and comment on. Later.